Did you know that one of the scariest movies ever made was almost never made at all? Whatever Happened to Baby Jane? Shocked audiences in 1962, but behind those creepy scenes and twisted secrets lay stories that were just as strange as the movie itself. This film brought together two legends who hadn't worked together in years. It brought back a style of filmmaking people thought was dead, and it changed Hollywood forever. The movie cost almost nothing to make, but became huge. Stars were terrified on set, directors made crazy choices, and the real-life drama behind the camera was almost as dark as what you see on screen. Today, we're uncovering 20 weird and amazing facts about whatever happened to Baby Jane. That will make you see this classic horror film in a completely new way. Let's dive in and discover 20 weird and amazing facts about whatever happened to Baby Jane. Fact number 20. The studio didn't want to make this movie. Picture this. It is 1962, and Warner Brothers reads a script about a cruel woman torturing her disabled sister. The studio executives look at each other and shake their heads. They think the idea is too dark. They think nobody wants to watch something this twisted and mean. They almost throw the script in the garbage. Director Robert Aldrich believed in the story so much that he decided to make it himself. He had to fight hard to convince the studio that audiences wanted something scary and different. He showed them that people were tired of the same old happy endings. People wanted their hearts to race. People wanted to feel scared in the dark. Aldrich made the film without the studio's big budget. He used black and white film when color was becoming popular. He kept everything small and simple. But that made the movie even scarier. Sometimes when filmmakers have less money, they get more creative. The studio's doubt became the movie's secret weapon. What the executives thought would fail became one of the most important horror films ever made. The studio learned a lesson that day. Sometimes the best movies come from the ideas people said would never work. Fact number 19. The two stars hadn't worked together in over 20 years. Bette Davis and Joan Crawford were two of the biggest movie stars in Hollywood history. But there was something nobody talked about. They couldn't stand each other. These two powerful women had fought for the same roles. They had competed for fame and awards. They had made each other jealous for decades. Then, out of nowhere, Robert Aldrich asked them to work together on a movie where one character hates the other character so much that she is cruel and mean. It was perfect casting, but it was also dangerous. The tension between them wasn't pretend. When the cameras rolled, all those years of anger and jealousy came out. Their fights looked real, because they kind of were real. The other actors on set felt the electricity between them. Everyone knew something powerful was happening. The two actresses never became friends, but they created movie magic together. Sometimes the worst relationships make the best performances. Sometimes enemies can create something beautiful because they understand real anger. The movie became legendary partly because the two leads weren't acting their hatred, they were channeling years of actual conflict into every scene. Real anger is always more powerful than fake anger. That's what made this film unforgettable. Fact number 18. Bette Davis was 61 years old and felt too old for the part. Bette Davis was one of the biggest stars in movie history. But by 1962, she felt invisible. Movies weren't calling her as much. Younger actresses were getting all the good roles. Directors seemed to forget that she was still an amazing performer. When she read the script for Baby Jane, something woke up inside her. This role was dark. It was ugly. It wasn't a glamorous character, but it was real and human and wild. She wanted it so badly. She took the part even though she worried about her age. She was already a grandmother. She had gray hair. Her face showed all her years of living. But that made Baby Jane even more terrifying. Baby Jane wasn't supposed to be beautiful. She was twisted and cruel and broken. Bette Davis's real age made her more powerful on screen. She showed that older actresses could carry huge movies. She proved that age wasn't a weakness, it was fuel. Other actresses watched what Bette Davis did, and they realized they didn't have to disappear from movies just because they were older. One powerful performance changed how Hollywood saw women over 60. Age became part of the story, not something to hide. Fact number 17, Joan Crawford's character couldn't speak or move much. So she created her own way to communicate. Joan Crawford played Blanche Hudson, a woman trapped in a wheelchair, paralyzed and unable to speak clearly. Most actors would complain about such a limiting role. But Joan Crawford was a professional who understood character deeply. She couldn't use her body to move around the set. She couldn't use her voice to deliver long speeches. So she created an entire language using only her eyes and small hand movements. Every moment she spent on screen, she was communicating emotion through tiny gestures. When she was afraid, her eyes would widen just a little bit. When she was trying to ask for help, her fingers would tremble. When she was thinking, her whole face would change. It was like watching someone speak without words. The camera loved her quiet performance. Audiences felt her pain more because she couldn't scream or fight back. Joan Crawford's limitation became her greatest strength. She had to be more creative than any other actor on set. She understood that sometimes saying nothing is more powerful than saying everything. Her silent performance taught a lesson that still matters in movies today. The best acting isn't always the biggest acting. Fact number 16. The black and white film made the movie scarier than color ever could. Robert Aldrich made a bold choice. He filmed Whatever Happened to Baby Jane in black and white when most Hollywood movies were already using color. The studio probably wanted color. More money meant color was possible. But Aldrich said no. He understood something important about fear. When you remove color, you remove comfort. Black and white feels old. It feels like truth. It feels like watching your worst nightmares. Shadows become deeper and darker. Faces become more mysterious. Every expression looks more extreme. The camera sees only light and dark, no pretty colors to soften the scary parts. Aldrich knew that if you put Baby Jane's cruelty in bright color, it would look less real. In black and white, the horror feels more real. The emotions feel more honest. The movie became scarier because of what was missing. Audiences couldn't hide in pretty colors. They had to watch the darkness. Modern horror movies try to create fear through loud noises and fast cuts. But Whatever Happened to Baby Jane created fear through simplicity. It removed everything pretty and left only truth. Sometimes the most powerful choice is to take something away, not add something new. The absence of color became the presence of pure fear. Fact number 15. The psychological horror was based on real abuse that happens in real families. The story of Baby Jane wasn't made up from nothing. It came from real situations that happen every day in families around the world. Robert Aldrich and writer Henry Farrell based the script on the terrifying reality of elder abuse and caregiver abuse. In real life, older people who can't protect themselves sometimes face cruelty from family members who are supposed to care for them. Blanche is trapped. She depends on Baby Jane for everything, and Baby Jane uses that power to hurt her. This happens in the real world more often than people talk about. The movie forced audiences to watch this ugly truth. You couldn't look away. You couldn't pretend it was just entertainment. The film showed that evil could wear the face of someone you love. Evil could live in your own home. Evil could hide behind closed doors. When audiences watched Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, they weren't just scared of monsters. They were scared of humans. They were scared of power used wrong. They were scared of situations that actually exist. That's why this movie mattered so much. It wasn't fantasy horror. It was real horror that happens in real life. The film made people think about protecting vulnerable people. It made people see that monsters don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they wear a face you recognize. Fact number 14. The famous rat scene. Almost didn't happen because Bette Davis was terrified of rats. There is a moment in the movie where baby Jane puts a dead rat on Blanche's bed. It's one of the most disturbing and memorable scenes in horror history. But here's the weird part. Bette Davis was absolutely terrified of rats. The thought of touching a rat, even a dead one, made her stomach turn. When the director explained the scene, she almost said no. This was her movie. This was her big comeback. But she would have to hold a dead rat. The filmmakers found a solution. They used a real dead rat for the scene, and Bette Davis had to gather all her courage. She touched it. She placed it. She performed the scene. She conquered her own fear for the sake of the story. Her genuine terror during filming wasn't just acting. Her body language showed real discomfort. Her reaction seemed completely authentic because it was authentic. An actress afraid of rats had to play a cruel woman doing something disgusting. The fear was real. The performance was powerful. Sometimes the best performances come from real emotions. Sometimes doing something that scares you makes the scene unforgettable. Bette Davis proved that day that a professional can push through fear for art. That moment changed how audiences saw her as an actress. She wasn't playing courage, she was actually being courageous. Fact number 13. The movie was shot in just 21 days on a tiny budget. Hollywood in 1962 was making bigger and bigger movies. They were spending more and more money. They thought that money equaled quality. Robert Aldrich decided to prove them wrong. He shot Whatever Happened to Baby Jane in only 21 days. The budget was around $900,000, which was tiny even for 1962. Most major films cost 5 or 6 times more. Aldrich had almost no money for extras. He had almost no money for big sets. He couldn't do multiple takes of every scene. The actors had to get it right quickly. The crew had to work fast. Everyone had to be focused and smart. This pressure made the movie better, not worse. When you have unlimited time and money, you can waste it. When you have almost nothing, every choice matters. Every scene has to count. Aldrich had to be creative instead of expensive. He used shadows instead of fancy lights. He used small rooms instead of big sets. He used close-up shots on faces instead of wide shots of elaborate scenery. The limitation forced genius. The tight budget became the movie's greatest strength. The film made millions of dollars and became one of the most important horror films ever made. It proved that great filmmaking isn't about how much money you spend. It's about how smart you use what you have. Sometimes having nothing makes you create something amazing. Fact number 12. Warner Brothers almost shelved the film after an early screening. After Robert Aldrich finished filming, Warner Brothers executives watched the movie. The room was quiet. Nobody moved. When the lights came up, the executives looked uncomfortable. They didn't think the movie would work. They didn't think audiences wanted something this dark and cruel. They almost decided to never release it. They would have buried the film and pretended it never existed. But Robert Aldrich fought back. He believed in his movie. He believed audiences were ready for something real and scary. He pushed the studio to release it. The executives finally agreed, but they didn't promote it much. They didn't spend money on advertising. They basically let the movie sink or swim on its own. Then something magical happened. Audiences discovered it. Word of mouth spread. People told their friends. People went back to see it again. Critics started writing about it. The film became a hit without big marketing money. It became a classic because audiences connected with it so powerfully. Sometimes studios don't know what audiences want. Sometimes the people with money are wrong. Sometimes a brave filmmaker has to trust his work more than the executives trust their business sense. Whatever Happened to Baby Jane almost disappeared forever. Instead, it changed the movie industry. The studio learned that dark, real stories could be huge hits. That lesson shaped horror films for decades to come. Fact number 11. The movie created an entire new genre called psychobiddy, or hagsploitation. Before Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, nobody had really made horror movies about older women. Horror was usually about monsters or young people in danger. But Bette Davis playing a cruel, twisted older woman changed everything. Suddenly, studios realized there was an audience for psychological horror centered on aging female characters. The success of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane created a whole new style of horror that lasted for years. Other studios made similar movies. Other actresses who thought they were too old got new chances. Movies like Hush, Hush, Sweet Charlotte, Straight Jacket, and The Nanny all followed the formula. Critics called it psychobiddy or hagsploitation. Some people meant it as an insult, but it really meant something new and powerful was happening in movies. Older actresses were suddenly the stars of scary, important films. They were no longer invisible. They were no longer pushed aside. One movie created an entire movement. Whatever Happened to Baby Jane proved that older actresses could carry big movies. It proved that aging wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. The film opened a door that changed Hollywood for years. Every older actress who got a chance to play a complex, powerful role owed something to Bette Davis and Robert Aldrich. One creative choice created a whole new world of possibility. Fact number 10. Ernest Haller, the cinematographer, was 81 years old when he shot the film. Ernest Haller was a legend in Hollywood. He had been a cinematographer for decades. He had worked on classic films. But by 1962, people thought he was too old to work. Nobody was calling him anymore. His career seemed over. Then Robert Aldrich hired him to shoot Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. Ernest Haller was 81 years old. He was older than Bette Davis, but he brought incredible skill and experience to every single shot. He understood how to use black and white. He understood how to create mood and fear through camera work. He understood how to make simple settings look terrifying through lighting. His age wasn't a weakness. It was a superpower. He had lived long enough to understand what real shadows looked like. He had lived long enough to know how to tell a story without saying anything. Ernest Haller made the movie look beautiful and terrifying at the same time. His work proved that experience matters. Age matters. The knowledge you collect over decades can't be replaced by youth and energy. The film became a comeback for Ernest Haller, just like it was for Bette Davis. Two aging artists created something that outlasted everyone younger and flashier. Sometimes the most powerful creative team is made of people everyone else has forgotten about. Sometimes the oldest people have the most important things to teach. Fact number 9. Bette Davis broke her back during filming but kept working. During filming, Bette Davis had an accident. She injured her back badly. In pain, she had every reason to stop work. But she didn't. She kept showing up. She kept performing. She kept pushing through the pain because she believed in the movie so much. She didn't want to stop production. She didn't want to let anyone down. She simply worked hurt. Her pain actually made some of her performances even better. Baby Jane is supposed to be someone twisted and uncomfortable to watch. Bette Davis's real physical pain translated into emotional pain on screen. Every moment of discomfort became part of the character. Other actors saw what she was doing. They felt ashamed if they thought about complaining. If an 81-year-old cinematographer could work, if a 61-year-old actress could break her back and keep going, then everyone could push harder. The set became a place where people didn't talk about exhaustion. They talked about the work. Bette Davis's sacrifice became the spirit of the entire production. The movie felt powerful partly because everyone involved had given everything. Nobody phoned it in. Nobody coasted. Everyone brought their whole selves. That commitment shows on screen. You can feel the effort. You can sense that real humans made this film, not just people collecting paychecks. Bette Davis's broken back was part of the movie's DNA. Fact number 8. The ending almost changed completely, and we almost never got the famous twist. The ending of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane is one of the greatest reveals in movie history. But Robert Aldrich almost changed it. Different versions of the ending existed. In some versions, Baby Jane dies differently. In some versions, the reveal happens another way. Test audiences saw different endings, and people reacted differently. Aldrich had to choose which ending would be the real ending. He had to pick which version would change the movie into a classic or just another thriller. The ending he chose was perfect. It was heartbreaking and terrifying and sad all at the same time. It revealed that Baby Jane had been suffering just as much as Blanche, but in a different way. The twist wasn't just about plot. It was about compassion for a broken human. When audiences saw that ending, they felt everything. They felt anger and sadness and pity all mixed together. That ending made people think about the movie for days afterward. Other endings might have been scarier or more exciting, but they wouldn't have made audiences feel so much. Robert Aldrich understood that great filmmaking is about emotion more than plot. A good ending surprises you. A great ending changes how you feel about everything that came before. The ending he chose made audiences re-examine the whole movie. They had seen cruelty, but now they saw suffering. They saw two broken people trapped together. That's why this film became immortal. Fact number 7. Joan Crawford actually did much of the wheelchair work herself. Instead of using a stunt, double Joan, Crawford played Blanche Hudson, who is paralyzed and in a wheelchair. The studio wanted to use a stunt double for safety and convenience. But Joan Crawford refused. She wanted to do the scenes herself. She understood that the audience would feel the difference. A real person in a wheelchair feels different on screen than an actor pretending. Joan Crawford actually stayed in the wheelchair between takes. She actually had to move carefully and slowly. She actually experienced what it felt like to be limited and trapped. That real experience made her performance more truthful. When the camera rolled, she wasn't pretending to be helpless. She was actually experiencing helplessness. Her frustration wasn't acting. Her patience wasn't acting. Her dignity in the face of limitation was real. Every scene where Blanche tries to escape or ask for help had authentic desperation in it. Joan Crawford's commitment to realism made the movie better. She understood that great acting isn't always about technical skill. Sometimes it's about actually living the character, not just playing the character. Her choice to do the wheelchair work herself created moments that couldn't have existed if a stunt double had filled in. You can feel the difference. Audiences at the time didn't know that Joan Crawford had done the work herself, but they felt it. They sensed that something was different and more real about her performance. That's the power of commitment to truth in acting. Fact number 6. The movie inspired countless real-life conversations about elder care and family responsibility. Whatever happened to Baby Jane? Did something that very few movies do. It changed how people thought about real problems in real life. After watching the movie, families went home and had conversations they had never had before. They talked about what happens to aging parents. They talked about who takes care of people when they become helpless. They talked about the responsibility of adult children toward their parents. They talked about the psychological damage that can happen when someone has all the power over someone completely helpless. The film forced people to see elder abuse as a real problem that needed attention. Documentaries and news programs started covering the issue more because audiences cared about it. Policymakers started thinking about protections for elderly people. Social workers recognized the movie's power to educate. Art didn't just entertain. Art changed policy. Art changed laws. Art made the world a better place. That's the ultimate power of great cinema. Whatever happened to Baby Jane? Was scary, yes, but it was also important. It mattered. It changed things. Years later, people who saw the film in 1962 still remembered how it made them think differently about their own aging relatives. Some families made different choices because of this movie. Some people became caregivers with more awareness and compassion. One film, made on a tiny budget in 21 days, created waves that still echo today. That's remarkable power. That's what happens when art tells truth. Fact number 5. Bette Davis and Joan Crawford didn't actually like each other. Offset, but they created magic together. The real-life tension between Bette Davis and Joan Crawford was famous in Hollywood. These two powerful women had competed their whole careers. They had made each other miserable. Offset, they weren't friends. They didn't have warm conversations. They didn't go to lunch together. They didn't pretend to like each other. But when the cameras rolled, something incredible happened. Their real tension transformed into artistic brilliance. They didn't have to imagine hatred. They didn't have to pretend jealousy. They lived it. Every scene between them carried actual emotional weight that fake acting could never match. Robert Aldrich was smart enough to understand this. Instead of trying to make them friends, he let their natural tension fuel the film. He used their conflict as a creative tool. Some of the greatest art in history comes from real conflict between artists. Musicians who fight with each other sometimes create amazing music. Painters who hate each other sometimes create beautiful art together. When powerful people clash, the result can be incredible. Bette Davis and Joan Crawford didn't become friends through this film, but they created something immortal together. Neither one would have made as powerful a film alone. Together, through conflict and tension, they made magic. The movie proved that artists don't have to like each other. Sometimes they just have to be real with each other. Fact number 4. The film cost almost nothing to make, but earned over $9 million. Let's talk about money because the numbers are shocking. Whatever Happened to Baby Jane cost approximately $900,000 to make. That's a tiny budget, even in 1962. Major studios spent 5 to 10 times more. But the film earned over $9 million. That's a return on investment of more than 900%. Nobody expected this. The studio had basically given up on the film. They didn't promote it. They didn't spend marketing money. They let it quietly appear in theaters. Audiences discovered it. They told their friends. The film became word-of-mouth famous. The profit was so huge that Hollywood suddenly realized something important. You don't need massive budgets to make massive hits. You need a good story. You need talented people. You need something real to say. You need something true. The financial success of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane changed how studios thought about filmmaking. It proved that a small film with big ideas could outperform big films with small ideas. Every low-budget independent film that succeeded in the decades that followed owed something to Whatever Happened to Baby Jane? The film proved that filmmaking wasn't about money. It was about vision. The success gave confidence to filmmakers who didn't have huge budgets. It proved they could still make movies that mattered. One small film's success changed the entire industry. Fact number 3. The movie brought back the thriller genre and made horror respectable again in Hollywood. Before Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, Hollywood was moving away from horror films. Studios thought horror was cheap and low class. Horror films were made for teenagers and low budgets. Serious actors didn't want to do horror. Serious studios didn't want to make horror. The genre was dying. Then Whatever Happened to Baby Jane arrived. It was made by a serious filmmaker. It starred the biggest actresses in the world. It was in beautiful black and white. It was serious art, not cheap entertainment. And it was absolutely terrifying. Suddenly, Hollywood realized that horror could be respectable. Horror could be important. Horror could be art. The film changed the entire landscape of what filmmakers could do. Alfred Hitchcock and other serious directors realized they could make horror films without embarrassment. Robert Aldrich had opened a door. Studios realized they could give major budgets to horror films. Major actors would appear in horror films. Major critics would take horror films seriously. Horror became an art form again. That's directly because of whatever happened to Baby Jane. The film brought respect and legitimacy back to an entire genre. In the decades that followed, horror films pushed boundaries and explored deep psychological ideas. None of that would have happened without this one movie proving that horror could be serious. The film was a turning point. Before, horror was one thing. After, horror was something else entirely. Fact number 2. The film's success started the golden age of psychological thrillers that lasted decades. Whatever happened to Baby Jane wasn't just a movie. It started a revolution. Its massive success showed studios that audiences wanted psychological horror. They wanted movies about broken people. They wanted movies that explored the human mind. They wanted scary stories that felt real. In the years that followed, psychological thrillers became one of the most important genres in cinema. Hitchcock made more films. New directors emerged. Studios invested money in these kinds of stories. Audiences flocked to theaters. The 60s and 70s became filled with psychological thrillers. Many of them traced their DNA back to whatever happened to Baby Jane. The film proved that the scariest monsters aren't creatures. The scariest things are human. The scariest things are psychological. The scariest things happen in the dark of human relationships. Other filmmakers learned from Aldrich's choices. They learned how to use black and white. They learned how to use simple settings. They learned how to create fear through character instead of special effects. They learned how to make audiences uncomfortable instead of just shocked. Decades of great cinema came from the success of this one film. The horror genre evolved. The thriller genre evolved. Cinema itself evolved. Whatever happened to Baby Jane was a seed. From that seed grew an entire forest of great films. The impact spread across time like waves in a pond. Every psychological thriller made in the next 50 years owed something to this film. That's enormous power for one small movie. Fact number 1. The film's ending broke all the rules and taught audiences that movies could surprise them. The ending of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane does something that most movies were afraid to do. It refuses to make things simple. It refuses to make things comfortable. The truth it reveals is painful and complicated. Baby Jane isn't just a monster. She's a broken human who suffered too. Blanche isn't just a victim. She had her own secret that caused pain. The ending forces audiences to feel sympathy for a cruel person. That was radical in 1962. Most movies ended with clear good guys and clear bad guys. Most movies resolved everything neatly. Whatever Happened to Baby Jane refused to be neat. It refused to be simple. It asked audiences to be mature enough to understand that real life is complicated. Real people have reasons. Real monsters have stories. Real victims aren't completely innocent. This ending taught audiences that movies could challenge them. It taught them that they could feel confused and sad and angry and sympathetic all at the same time. It taught them that the best art doesn't give you simple answers. The ending made people think about the whole film differently. They had to reconsider what they had seen. They had to rethink their own judgments. That's the mark of truly great art. The film doesn't let you rest. The film doesn't let you feel safe in your opinions. It keeps challenging you. It keeps asking you to understand more. That's why audiences remember this ending. That's why audiences still talk about it 60 years later. The ending refused to be forgotten. Bonus fact: the deleted scenes and alternative takes reveal even darker ideas that never made it into the final film. Behind the scenes of any great film, there are moments that don't make it into the final version. Robert Aldrich filmed scenes that never appeared in the movie. Some were too dark, some were too cruel. Some revealed even more devastating truths about the characters. In the deleted material, Baby Jane's childhood is explored more deeply. You see how her early trauma created the monster she became. You see even more clearly how damaged both women are. Some versions showed even more physical cruelty. Some versions showed Baby Jane's mental illness more explicitly. Some versions explored the silence between the two women in ways that might have been too quiet for audiences. Aldrich made choices about what to show and what to hide. He understood that sometimes what you don't show is scarier than what you do show. The deleted material reveals his thought process. It shows a filmmaker thinking deeply about psychology and pain. It shows someone wrestling with how much truth audiences could handle. The final film is more powerful than any of the deleted scenes because Aldrich understood restraint. He understood that suggestion is more powerful than showing. He understood that silence can be louder than words. What made it into the film was the stuff that mattered most. The deleted scenes are like studying an artist's sketches. You see the thinking. You see the possibilities. You see why certain choices led to genius. Sometimes the best creative decisions are about what to leave out, not what to put in. Old tools, new magic. Whatever Happened to Baby Jane is more than a scary movie. It's a story about broken people trying to survive together. It's a story about how cruelty comes from pain. It's a story about how family can hurt us and also trap us. But most importantly, it's a story about how one idea, believed in by one filmmaker, can change everything. Robert Aldrich believed in this story when nobody else did. He took a tiny budget and a script nobody wanted. He gathered aging artists that Hollywood had forgotten. He made a film in 3 weeks that changed cinema forever. That's the real magic of this movie. It teaches us that great art comes from refusing to give up. Great art comes from working with what you have. Great art comes from believing in something even when others doubt you. The film shows us that older people still have power. It shows us that women can be complex and dark and interesting. It shows us that audiences are smarter and braver than studios think. Every person who watches Whatever Happened to Baby Jane is changed a little bit. You see characters who suffer. You feel their pain. You understand their choices even when you disagree with them. You leave the theater thinking differently about family and responsibility and cruelty and compassion. If you enjoyed these 20 weird facts about Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, please subscribe for more. Every movie hides a truth beneath the surface. Every film holds secrets that make you understand cinema and people and art in new ways. We'll keep uncovering these stories, one film at a time. Thank you for spending this time with us. Thank you for caring about the people and stories behind the magic.